Oh, they're already coming, the fire department. We're in trouble now.
You've just seen an amazing fire starting demonstration by our guest tonight, Keith Gutierrez. I'm Nan Geschke, and I'm your host of the Los Altos History Show, and I'm here speaking with Keith Gutierrez. Welcome, Keith, to the History Show.
Thanks, Nan. It's a pleasure to be here.
I thought we'd give you a little background on Keith. Keith has been a teacher at Hidden Villa in Deer Hollow, and he's now the Redwood Grove naturalist, and he is involved in teaching children from all over the Bay Area about the Ohlone people, the Native American people who lived here in what we call Los Altos. Maybe for the benefit of our viewers, Keith, you could tell us what a naturalist is and what your duties and responsibilities are being the naturalist for the Redwood Grove.
Sure. A naturalist is a person who studies and teaches about nature. I see two roles within that. One is that naturalists teach about the environment, the plants, the trees, the animals that are around. And the other part of that is probably naturalists do research to make sure that we are taking care of the environment or any changes have been made in our environment. So that's pretty much the main roles of naturalist. What my role is at Redwood Grove in the city of Los Altos is to share a lot of the native plants that we have around here and to teach to the kids about the Ohlone Indians and how they used the land and things like that. So they're kind of together, naturalist and the Ohlones. Probably one of the first naturalists were the Ohlones.
So it's a natural environment then along Adobe Creek in the Redwood Grove. So a lot of the animals and plants would be similar to the plant life that the Ohlones encountered, I imagine.
Oh yes, very much, very much. A lot of the plants and things that at least I share with the kids are native and have been around since the Ohlones, and we teach them how they use the different plants and so on.
Now, Keith, the Ohlones were one of many tribes along the coast of California. What were some of the characteristics of these tribes, like the Miwoks? I know that was another tribe that was close by.
Yeah, the Miwoks, the Pomos, a lot of the tribes along the coast were very similar in lots of ways. Fishing was a big part of their lives. Their houses were pretty much similar in their shapes of their houses and things like that. A lot of the languages were probably similar too, although there were some divisions within languages. A lot are similar, that way they can be able to communicate. Trading was a big part of that. But mainly they had the bay, they had the ocean, and bodies of water to be able to get a lot of their food sources. So that's a main reason why they were near the coast.
So they did visit each other or had some kind of contact with one another.
Yeah. A lot of the other neighbors pretty much had things that they might have wanted or needed. Certain plants or rocks grow in certain areas. For example, obsidian you wouldn't be able to find in this area. So you would have to go up north, and so it was traded from the north down to the area, the Bay Area, Los Altos area. So it was a lot of trading going on, and that's why things were very similar in ways, because they did kind of keep in contact or trading routes open.
Right. Well, today we went and visited Keith at the Redwood Grove, and he was just amazing. He was very masterful with the children. I was mesmerized myself by the stories he told us about the Ohlone people, and we're going to be sharing some of those moments today at the end of the show when we roll in our tape. But I thought we'd share a little bit about what the Ohlone life was like. We know that the Spanish were here about 200 years ago when De Anza came, but what kind of life did the Ohlone live perhaps 250, 300 years ago, Keith?
Yeah, life was probably amazing. Just if you think about the land itself, I mean, it was pretty open. We didn't have all the houses and things there. You had the bay, and you had the mountains and the forest and all these things. And you can imagine the wildlife that we have today. If you do a lot of hiking in the area, the wildlife. Well, probably times that by 5, and you'd probably get the amount of animals that were around. In fact, some stories have it that the sky would be blackened by all the waterfowls that would fly up in the skies and block the sun here. So the wildlife was plenty, and the land was pretty much giving as far as a lot of the plants and trees and things that were here. So they pretty much knew how to use the land. They pretty much worked with the animals, the plants, and the trees to be able to survive themselves, but also those animals, plants, and trees also need to survive because that's part of their lives there. So the land was pretty plentiful. We're lucky in California to have the mountains and the forest and the bay, the San Francisco Bay or Monterey Bay or even the Pacific Ocean. So there was plenty of food source here, which kept them thriving throughout the many years.
So did the Ohlone move back and forth at all, or did they stay? Were there settlements in one particular place here?
They did move a lot back and forth because most of the time they want to be near the bay or a body of water. But oftentimes when the rain comes, of course, something's going to rise, the bay's going to rise, and you're going to have to move out, otherwise your village would get flooded. So they kind of move towards seasons. When the water's calm and nice, they can do their fishing and all the water food they can get. And when the waters got rough and things are different seasons, they would know when to move to the foothills or so on. Or if it's fall, that's the time to go collect your acorns and your other nuts and seeds. In the summers when you collect your berries. So yeah, they would move around, sometimes the whole village, sometimes it would be small groups, temporary gatherers and so on. So plenty of work to do.
How large were those villages, Keith? Do you have any idea, or do archaeologists have any idea of how large the Ohlone settlements were?
Yeah, actually, there's lots of figures on how large they would be. Probably a small-sized village would probably be somewhere around 35 people. That's probably manageable for them to be able to go out and keep everyone with food. Probably the large size, in fact, I think it was recorded in some of the Spanish journals, is that one of the Ohlone villages was close to 400 people, which was a lot of people, and that meant a lot of work to be done to feed everyone in the village there. But a typical day would be everyone has to go out and contribute to the village. So the women were the gatherers, and the men were the hunters. Women were not allowed to hunt because of what they believed. A lot of the times kids think because they weren't strong enough, or they weren't smart enough, or they just didn't know how, or they might get hurt. But it actually all comes down to what they believed. And what they believed was that women were here to give life. And being life givers, you're not allowed to take away life. And of course, when you hunt for an animal, that's taken away alive. So the men did the hunting and the women did the gathering. Everyone had their jobs to do so that they all can get food and to be able to survive.
So the women actually worked as a group, and the men worked as another group.
Yeah.
All right. So they were really kind of polarized in that sense. What was the family life like? Were there family groups as we understand family groups, or were they a larger in more communal groups.
Yeah, I think it was larger because, again, you didn't just feed mom, dad, brother, sister. You fed everyone pretty much equally. So when you're gathering, you're not just gathering for your family, you're gathering for everyone within there. So your family could be, extended by other neighboring families, or sometimes families might even share a hut where they might sleep or stay. So family time was important. Oftentimes they'd go off and do their own jobs. The men would go out and get ready for their hunts, so the women would go out and make their baskets, get ready for their foods. But family time was important too, because there were times where they would come together for ceremonies, for different meal times, as well as even fun game times to be able to watch the kids as they're playing their games. So there was family time, but when it came for getting food, the women went to go do their job. The girls would follow to learn the skills they needed to know. The men would go out and get ready for their hunt. The boys would learn the things they needed to know or play some of the games that would teach them to be good hunters or whatever skill they may pick up.
Now you mentioned huts. Were they permanent huts, or what were they made of? I mean,
yeah, their huts were actually
no split level huts.
Yeah, actually their huts we call them sleeping huts. Although they did use them more for storage than sleeping. They usually slept outdoors on the good weather. Of course, when the rain weathers, they can use it for indoors and stuff. So mainly it was storage hut, but then bad weather they can do it. Their huts were actually kind of a dome shape, and they get a frame made from the willow branches, and they cover it with tule, which is a plant that grows near the bay, and so it's used to the water. They were kind of real simple to be able to put together because obviously when they get wet, they get moldy, and moldies are going to cause bugs and stuff, infestation there. So if they got too bad where they couldn't stand the bugs, they would just burn it down and build a new one. So they were pretty good at being able to do that. And of course, the tule plant provided them with all they need. They knew how to use the plant for their houses and boats and other type things that they would use the tules.
You mentioned plant material. I know that we're interested now in natural herbs and natural medicines, and I know that the Native American people, the Alonis, were also very astute in the kinds of medicines that they used. And I know you know a few of those. Could you share some of that?
Oh, sure. When you needed to take care of some basic health things like there, we have to realize that if sometimes they got stomach aches too. So if they did get a stomach ache, they knew to chew on the silk tassel leaves, and that would induce vomiting. That way they'd be able to get their upset stomach cleared. Or if they had eye irritation, they can get the oak gall from the oak trees while they're fresh and new, and make a solution where they can irritate the eye more to flush it out better. A lot of times they had toothaches. Just thinking about the way they processed their food, their teeth got really sore and sometimes infected. And if it got to be a point where it was really sore, they knew that they can pick the poppy roots and chew on the poppy roots, and that would numb up their mouths to get rid of the pain.
Oh,
so there were a lot of plants that they used to be able to help them with their normal colds or headaches and things like that. If they had a headache, they knew to chew on the willow bark, and that would get rid of their headaches.
Okay, I'll try that the next time.
Yeah.
You mentioned headaches and also stomach aches. I mean, we usually don't really think about the Ohlone people being sick, but they did get sick just as well as we got sick. But what was the average lifespan of an Ohlone?
I would say there was probably about 35. Most of it had to do with their diet. Later on, obviously the disease brought by the Europeans and the Spaniards, but before then it was pretty much their diet determined there. Of course there were probably other elements. Some of them might have from hunting died from wounds and stuff like that, but an average about 35. Some probably lived up to 80, 70 years old, some probably didn't even get up to 35, but an average pretty much it was about 35.
So tell me about this diet. I know that at least in the last few hundred years, the Ohlones were very dependent on the acorn and the oak, the whole oak tree phenomenon. Could you tell me a little bit about that? I know that they used to grind the acorns.
Yeah, the acorns was something they had available to them, and they realized that it's something that's seasonal and it comes a lot. So they had a whole system where they would gather some in the fall. That would be used for next year, so that because that had to be dried out, and then so the previous years would be used for this year. So there was a whole system as far as going and gathering their acorns there. But they wanted to be able to make that into a hot cereal, something they can have available to them most of the time. In order for them to do that, they would have to grind these nuts into a powder. And in order to do that, they'd have to have a grinding stone or a mortar and pestle.
I know we saw you demonstrate that in the Redwood Grove today. That was really, really interesting.
Yeah. And what we have around here is pretty much a lot of sandstone, so it was pretty easy to chip away and get your hole started so that you can grind these acorns in that. So, but we also have to remember that because they're grinding the acorns, they're also chipping little of the sandstones in there, and that's probably why a lot of their teeth were affected by the chips of stones as they're eating their acorn mush there.
Okay.
But that was an important tool for them, is the acorn grinding. And yes, they didn't have it all the time, but it kind of helped them with their food source so that they had something really stable most of the time, because with some of the other things you may not get it. And we're lucky in California, we have lots of oak trees, you know, the black oaks, blue oaks, red oaks, canyon oak, live oaks, and so on. Right. So there was plenty of oak trees to get.
I know you showed us, Keith, today. You decorated one of the small girls with some of the jewelry that may have been popular with the Ohlonies. Was that a craft that was normal, or?
Most of the jewelry was pretty much, it was a craft. Usually not everyone knew how to make the beads as well. Not everyone knew how to use the tools that they used there. So most of the time, everyone had their own special crafts that they can share with others there. The necklace that the young girl was wearing was something normal and typical that most of the Ohlonies would wear, because shell was something they had available from the ocean and the bay. A lot of the tribes to the east did not have these. So yes, if you were the jeweler, if you were the craftsperson of these, you're going to have lots of trade, and of course if you have lots of trade, then you're going to be pretty wealthy within that. So yes, it was a skill definitely needed to be able to enrich the village so that they can trade with others and keep good relationships with the neighbors as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So they did trade this jewelry, and they traded different tools, I would imagine, too.
Right, yeah.
You know, we just sort of skimmed the surface of learning about the Ohlonies with our conversation here tonight, and also our visit with you. Where can people go to learn more about the Ohlonies?
Well, there's lots of places that we can go. We have to first of all realize that there are a lot of Ohlone descendants still around. And obviously they're out doing their own jobs in schools and so on, trying to get their own careers and lives there. But there's a lot of places that are teaching. As far as schools, we have Deer Hollow Farm, who has a program. We have Sanborn, which is the YSI program. We have Coyote Hills. And of course, Redwood Grove. I do programs at Redwood Grove to mainly 3rd and 4th graders as part of their curriculum. And I've done other grade levels. We try and adjust it there. But to give them an idea of how these people used to live, which is a big part of our history, living here in California, in particular the Bay Area, and that's where the Ohlonies were.
What do you think we can learn, Keith, from the way the Ohlonies live? I mean, obviously we don't live the kind of life that the Ohlonies lived on Adobe Creek. We've kind of strapped ourselves with a lot more of headache a lot of times.
Yeah.
But what can we learn from their lifestyle, do you think?
Well, I think the Ohlonies were fantastic people because they didn't waste like we waste today. When they used something, they used all of it. The moldy acorns got used, they would be given to the grandmother, she would make a candy food out of it. So that wasn't wasted because once they gathered, they couldn't take any more from the animals and that are out there. So they weren't wasteful at all. And this is something we can learn with all the packaging and the things that we have. We create a lot of garbage and things there. And if we could learn things from them, that would be it, is to learn how to use everything, and that way we can reduce the amount of problems that we're creating within our environment.
There was a tremendous respect then, wasn't there, for animals, for plant life, for human life as well, because they all seemed to work together. There was a very close harmony of man to plant to animal, much more than I think we really appreciate today, don't you think?
Oh, I definitely think so, yeah. definitely the animals was part of them. You know, in fact, they believe their life started through animals. So it was a big part of their lives there. And the care of the animals is going to be the care of themselves. The care of their neighbors and their people in their village is going to be the care of themselves. So yeah, it was something. Again, we could all learn from, and again, they're probably the first naturalists because they knew how to take care of the environment and use it well so that they can survive and, again, thrive within there. We can all learn from these people, yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciated our morning with you. It was just fantastic to see those children just mesmerized by your story about the Ohlone. I didn't see anybody lose their attention, and that's really saying something for children to sit still for a half hour, or for an hour and a half. Actually, it was an hour and a half. But you kept the pace, and you were able to demonstrate the grinding rocks, and you demonstrated the bow and arrow, and how to start the fire, if you could start the fire. Yeah. And you said sometimes they didn't start the fire, so they were cold that night.
They were cold that night, yes. It's important, and I think it's good for the kids to see that too. We were lucky today to get a fire going, but sometimes it doesn't happen with the groups I do, and that gives them an idea. You know, if you don't have fire, boy, it's going to be a rough night. You can't cook some of your food. It might be a little cold in your house or around your hut there. So yeah, all these things I hope to share with the kids today. They got a good feel of how the people lived. Obviously, I'd love to spend more time, but within the hour and a half that we had, I kind of shared as much as I could within them, and hopefully they got a good learning out of it. And hopefully they will also become the teachers, and they will be able to go back and share this with their families and parents, because a lot of their probably families and parents and neighbors don't know a lot about the people special.
I like that very much when you said, now you're the teacher. Now take it back to your families and to your brothers and sisters and friends, and tell them about the Ohlone people. Yeah. Because I think that the lifestyle is so different that it is really very, very interesting for children and for adults to really to learn more about it.
Yeah, and it's good for the kids to also take a role. Now they're teachers. Now they can teach. Well, I'm a teacher. That's great. Right. So yeah, it gives them a different role rather than being a student all the time. So.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. We really appreciate you coming and being our guest tonight. Oh. And to all of our viewers, I hope you join us next time for the Los Altos History Show. But please stay tuned, because you'll see a little bit of what Keith Gutierrez does at the Redwood Grove. And we'll see you next time. Let's roll that tape now.
Tie this onto you. Okay, so they have a tulle grass skirt here, and obviously you're going to see that she's actually has her work dress on here, her work skirt, because you can see that in the back here. You want to turn around, that they don't cover the back here. Okay, you can see that the back is not covered. Okay, which makes sense, because if she's going to sit down and make a basket today, she doesn't want to sit on that dry, brittly grass. So she may leave that open and cover that instead with a deer skin. Okay, so I'm going to have you lift your arms up again. I'm just going to tuck this in the side. Now, they don't want to cover the front, because the front's going to be decorated with shells and furs and things like that. All right, and there we go. And then, of course, if she's going to go out and do some gathering of foods, then she's going to want to wear her tulle sun visor. Okay. So this is what you might see the women wearing on a typical warm fall day, warm spring day. You want to turn around, so you might want to hold this on so they can all see. There you go. I'm going to do a water song since it's raining out here today. This is a Northern California tribe. It's not an Ohlone tribe, but it's a Northern California tribe here. And then we'll finish up with an Ohlone song, okay? It goes like this. Repeat after me. Hey, Wichita-yo. Hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, Witchy, Wichita-yo. Hey-yo, hey-yo. Oh. Women were not allowed to hunt. It had to do with what they believed. What they believed was, they believed that the women were here to give life. And only women could have babies, so they're giving life. And being life givers, you're not allowed to take away life. When you hunt for an animal, that's taking away a life. So that's why the women did not hunt. They were life givers, and life givers did not take away life. So that left the job up to the men. The hair's usually a little more slicker, but as long as you keep your head straight, you should be able to bend down and go ahead and pick up those buckeye seeds. There you go. And then just toss them in the back there. There you go. Give them a little toss. There you go. Just drop it on in. Great. All right. Give them a big hand there. Hey, na na na, hey, na na, ho, ho. Hey, na na na, hey, na na, ho, ho. Very good. This time we're going to let you try it. There we go. And we'll do the chanting. Go. Hey, na na na, hey, na na, ho, ho. Hey, na na na, hey, na na, ho, ho. Keep going. Keep it in the middle. Keep it in the middle. There you go. Keep going. Long strokes now. Long strokes. Long strokes. Great. Keep going. Keep going. Okay. Keep going. Keep going. It's not hot enough. We're only about 60 miles per hour here. We want to get to 80. Uh-oh, they're already coming, the fire department. We're in trouble now. Go ahead and get the same rhythm as me. Okay. You want to kind of sway and slouch from back and forth, so it's like this. Like a bear would walk and looking for food. There you go. Now, this is not a repeating song, but this is a song that the Aloni's would do as the other tribes were leaving, going back to their village. It's a going away song, and it goes like this. Ooh-ha, ooh-hoo, wanna say, wanna say, wanna say, wanna say, wanna. Ooh-ha, ooh-hoo, wanna say, wanna. Wanna say, wanna say, wanna say, wanna. And